On fourth, end zone, Lamb, touchdown, Dallas.
And that is how Cup This Chubb, who I had selected to go to the playoffs back in week 4, ends up crashing out of the Antoine and Friends Football League postseason in favor of who else but the commissioner, Megatwan, who has entered the playoffs here with a squeaker of a win. That play doesn't happen, or if Cup This Chubb starts feeling this past week, then he's going through to the playoffs. But instead, Megatwan with the gutsy win on a pass by Homer Simpson. Don't believe me? Check out how I watched this play go down at Adams Stadium in Springfield. Check it out.
ESPN analytics say go for it, and so does Professor Frink. I've just been told. It's 4th down and 1. They empty it out for Homer Simpson playing quarterback. Play clock down to 3. Simpson looking to throw. He floats it toward the end zone. Touch diddly down. C.D. Lamb.
I was kind of scratching my head during the broadcast going, how the heck do they keep predicting when something crazy is going to happen? It's because it was on a delay. Duh. So check out how I ended up punching my ticket to the playoffs on a touchdown from, well, you wouldn't believe me if I told you, so just watch it.
Bart's in that quarterback, and now look, Ralph or Lisa can be options.
Yeah, Burrow, Chase, and Higgins are out. Bart, Lisa, and Ralph are in. Bart Simpson takes the snap, throws to Ralph. Touchdown!
Ralph!
He's not in danger. He's in the end zone.
Nice! He choose to throw it to Ralph. I'm so happy for the little guy. Did you see his release at the line of scrimmage?
Huh. Not bad for a kid whose first helmet was a mixing bowl that he got his head stuck into. What a throw from Bart to Ralph.
And Bart is fired up. He's got his Adams Stadium leap on point. And look at the skills from Ralph. With moves like that, Mina, he's going to get a scholarship to Bovine University.
Mina Kimes said after that play, if you started Ralph Wiggum in fantasy today, congratulations. And what's wrong with you? Well, I started Ralph Wiggum, and so did millions of Americans yesterday. And we were thrilled with his 45-point explosion. You know, we saw Josh Allen and Puka Nacua putting up huge performances. And Jamar Chase was like, no. With nothing left to play for these Cincinnati Bengals, very, very long chance of them making the playoffs. It is still possible. So they're not going to pack it in entirely yet. But the biggest thing that Burrow and Chase seem to be playing for at this point is the fact that Jamar Chase could get the Triple Crown, only the 3rd time this century that somebody would be able to get that. Most receptions, touchdowns, and yards. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Bengals force-feeding Jamar Chase down the stretch here, at least as long as they remain mathematically in the playoff hunt. Big game against Tennessee Titans this weekend. Broncos, I mean, we'll get more into this during the Pick 6 segment of the show, but Broncos, number 1 team in the league in the NFL against the spread right now at 10-3, facing the Indianapolis Colts, who are the other team in the hunt with the Miami Dolphins right now. Dolphins going to take on the Houston Texans. I think the Dolphins get the upset on the road there. I think the Broncos take care of business at home, which would open up one slot, for the Bengals if they take care of business at Tennessee. They will be in the hunt. Going to need some help from my Broncos to lose down the stretch. But I think if we beat the Colts, they beat the Titans, they're going to jump into that in the hunt conversation. They're just going to need some help from the Texans or somebody else to take down the Dolphins. But we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. Much more important news right now. I'm in the playoffs. I mentioned this before. Started 0-4 this season. At one point talked about how this show was my punishment for coming in last place. And now here I am in the playoffs after going 7-7, never being above 500 all year. 500 is the most I've been able to do. So that doesn't speak too well for my matchup this week against KD over TDs. But I get the sneak in thanks to underdog anchor champ taking care of business against Auto Pickens. Auto Pickens, I mean, he was number 1 in Division 3 all season long. Now the best he can hope for is a consolation title. He's out. He's out. Unbelievable finish there. Underdog looking very scary. Getting the bye week after KD's over TD's for some reason. Yes, he did fail to start somebody in place of George Pickens, which gave him a 0 at one of his key wide receiver positions. The truth is, Troy Polamalu absolutely erupted this week for over 160 points. Nothing that KD over TDs could have done anyways, but he does go from bye week Division 1 champion to still Division 1 champion, but playing me this week in the quarterfinal. Huge matchup there. Achilles heel against Megatron in the other quarterfinal slot. HN of the Membrane, of course, on a bye week this week. Down in the consolation bracket, we've got a fun one in the LA corner. We have Cup This Chubb against 666. Return of the King on a bye. One of those 3 teams is going to be in your consolation final. And 666, I spoke with him in an exclusive interview over the weekend, and he said he doesn't want to come in last. He doesn't want to get relegated. He's looking to get a win. But boy, he's going to have to earn it the iron way in a matchup against the worst person he could have chosen, except maybe Troy Polamalu, with a red hot Cup This Chubb team that was just one good decision away or one dropped touchdown pass from CeeDee Lamb away from being in the playoffs himself. He's going to be looking for a consolation title to wipe his tears away. I'm expecting him to bring the curb stomp to 666, but I've been jinxing Cup This Chubb all season long. 666 might manage to get the upset. We'll see. On the other side of the consolation bracket, we've got Garth Mall in a very tough matchup against Troy Polamalu. Auto Pickens gets the bye here. He'd much rather be playing in the playoffs, I'm sure. But a bye week in the consolation bracket, which I hear is getting some sizable action, does seem like a nice consolation for Auto Pickens to go after. But he's going to have to wait for the outcome of Garth Mall versus Troy Polamalu. Troy also seeking to avoid relegation. Really wants to get the win in this one. Garth Mall with an emotional, gutsy win over 666 to close out the season. You know she doesn't want to lose and go into the last place matchup. So everybody with a ton to play for in this consolation bracket and a nice prize pot on the line. Before we jump in to we're only going to review the 2 quarterfinal matchups today in detail. But before we do that, I want to talk about some of the side bets that were resolved at the end of the season with the conclusion of week 14. Underdog Anchor Champ was widely panned as having the worst team coming out of the draft, and he put his money where his mouth is, challenging multiple owners that he was going to have a good season. He had his team, his divisions points against both Return of the King's divisions points and Cup This Chubb's division points. That's Division 3 against Division 2 and against Division 1. Division 3 finished with the most points for overall in the entire Antoine and Friends Football League. Very surprising considering HN and the Membrane in Division 2 has over 100 points more than any other team in the league. Has almost 2,000 when nobody has over 1,800, other than a couple of us, myself and Cup This Chubb. But 666 really dragged down Division 2's overall points for. And then on top of the points bet, we had the Gump twins against the other Gump twins. Myself and Underdog Anchor Champ against Cup This Chubb and Return of the King. Points for Myself and Underdog Anchor Champ won easily in that one. Cut This Chubb had a really good performance. He ended up coming behind me by about 50 points, but Cut This Chubb really got dragged down by Return to the King's performance here. Pretty insane that, I saw a stat yesterday that 51% of teams with Saquon Barkley are either number 1 or number 2 in their league, not just in the playoffs. In our league, 50% chance that you would just have a bye week. And Saquon Barkley isn't even in the playoffs in our league. Not even in the playoffs. Saquon Barkley's not in. Cooper Kupp's not in. Derrick Henry's not in. Josh Allen's not in. I mean, these are some heavy hitters on the fantasy universe that are not going to be in the Antoine and Friends football finale. Instead of a star-studded roster, we have Achane in the membrane with just a solid overall team that is looking like the commanding number 1 seed going into week 15 of action. He will, of course, be sitting on bye. Let's look at our 2 quarterfinal matchups here in week 15. First, it is 4 versus 5. Achilles heel against Megatwan in quarterfinal number 1. The winner will go on to play Achane in the membrane in week 16. Little bit of a poison chalice there. Not exactly this is, I would say, the harder path to the finals. I say as I'm about to lose to Katie over TDs and or Underdog Anchor Champ. But it's true. I don't think anybody going into the playoffs wanted to be anywhere near Achane in the membrane. If you got to play him in the finals, fine. But you're hoping to be able to wait that long to be able to face him. Not going to be the case for one of these two who will simply earn the right to get booty smacked by him next week. Megatwan with what I would say, he's projected 47 to 53% here. To my eye, Achilles heel should be the heavy favorite in this one. Now, I know what you're going to say. Nick, you jinxed. You jinxed Cut This Chubb by saying that he had the dominant team. Like I just said, 51% chance if you have Saquon Barkley that you're number 1 or 2 in the league. You cannot look at Cut This Chubb's lineup and not tell me that on paper, that is the strongest roster in the entire Antoine and Friends Football League. And on paper, I am saying Achilles heel's team, Jalen Hurts, Garrett Wilson, Amari Cooper, Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, Jonnu Smith, Isaiah Pacheco, Jameis Winston. Heaters, all of them, heaters. Isaiah Pacheco is finally getting back to full strength in this backfield. Kareem Hunt has been terribly ineffective, and volume was really all he had to hang his hat on in this offense. Now it's Isaiah Pacheco in the passing game, in the running game, down in distance, doesn't matter. Samaje Perine is the biggest, I would say, detractor for Isaiah Pacheco for the rest of these playoffs, more so than Kareem Hunt. Jonnu Smith, arguably the number 1 tight end in all of fantasy right now, had 0 points going into overtime of last week, ended the game with 13.5. They ran the same play 2 times in a row, the exact same play in overtime. The exact same play. You know what? They're not going to believe me unless I show. It's the exact same play. Exact same play. Let's go to it real quick.
Losing at Green Bay, 30-17 on Thanksgiving. 2nd down, 10. Jonnu Smith, first catch today. There he goes, galloping into the secondary, and finally brought down by Chuck. 1st and 10. Smith again. Blocked by Lamb. Blocked by Eichenberg. Tackle made by Jalen.
Have you ever been rooting for your player to get a throw in the end zone or during overtime or something, and then it's incomplete, and you go, just do the same thing again? The Dolphins completed the pass and still did the same thing again. And then they threw it to him in the end zone. If you're Achilles heel and you got Jonnu Smith, you got to be feeling locked in for the playoffs, at least at the tight end position. All in all, I just feel like Achilles heel has the edge at essentially every position here. Not a one jumps out. CeeDee Lamb has the edge, I would say, is the best overall wide receiver. But other than that, and then the Washington defense against New Orleans, that's a great pick. I expect Marshawn Lattimore to have a great revenge game against the New Orleans Saints. Give me an interception from Marshawn Lattimore in this game. But other than that, Njoku is projected more than Jonnu Smith, but I consider this a wash at best. Other than that, give me Achilles heel in this one. Slight favorite based on the computer. I think she's a pretty heavy favorite in this one. This is going to be a double-digit lead at worst for Achilles heel when it's all said and done. But good on Megatron for making the playoffs in a season that, frankly, I think all of us are shocked that he's even made it this far. Now watch him win out and, beat Achan in the membrane and end up in the finals. It'll be surprising, but I think Achilles heel's got this one pretty comfortably. Finally, in our second quarterfinal matchup, we have myself, Bo Lever, against KD over TDs. We're bringing in his theme music because this is the music I used when I introduced KD over TDs at the beginning of the season. Him and Troy were the teams that I thought were the most dangerous at the season start. And man, if I'm not nervous to be facing him this week in the playoffs, he has been in command of Division 1 for most of the season after Cup This Chubb fell off fairly early. I've kept calling him out as being vulnerable, as having very few points for, as having played a soft schedule, barely winning his matchups. And now I've got to cash a check that my mouth has been writing all season long. And would you look at this? Even the computer has me as a heavy favorite against him. But God, if I don't think that just like every single one of my matchups in the last month, I mean, week 14. Okay, maybe not so much this one. But week 13, very close game. Week 12 wasn't that close. Week 11, very close game. Okay, week 9 wasn't that close. Week 9. Okay, that one was good. Okay, not that close. Week 8, very close game. You see my point here. Every other week is an insanely close game, okay? And now, after a not very close game against Achilles heel, although this was very close until Ralph Wiggum / Jamar Chase went nuclear on Monday Night Football. Following the trend of the last few weeks, this one is going to be a nail biter. Ignore this number. It's going to be a nail biter. KD over TDs is going to be projected to win until the very end. The question is, do I pull a rabbit out of my ass on Monday Night Football? The problem there is that Monday Night Football is TJ Hawkinson against Justin Jefferson and Bijan Robinson. Oh, God. So instead of me getting to pull the Monday night comeback, KD over TDs is looking to end my season with a Monday night comeback. Huge matchup to look out for in this one. Sunday Night Football. Sunday Night Football is between Josh Jacobs and Kenneth Walker III, or more likely, because Kenneth Walker is probably going to be out again this week, I'm going to have to face freaking Zach Charbonnet, who put up 38 points on KD's bench last week. No George Pickens. He's going to end up playing Debo or going to get somebody off the waiver wires. Either way, I'm scared, but this one is the one I'm really scared of. I tried so hard to trade for Zach Charbonnet leading up to the trade deadline. That was the one deal I wanted to get done after I got the Josh Jacobs deal done with Return to the King. And he just wouldn't bite. He said, I want to have my lotto tickets for the playoffs. Well, you got your lotto ticket. You didn't use it this last week. Something lets me to believe that you're going to use it this week. Brian Thomas Jr. probably going to slot in here for George Pickens, and then Zach Charbonnet in the flex, and then me having to figure out how the hell I replace Kenneth Walker. Last week, I used Amir Abdullah, which must have been the worst pick ever. I mean, literally every other person I was considering, even Kareem Hunt, who got like less than 4 points, would have been better than Amir Abdullah. Ended up not mattering. I won by like almost 30 points anyways. But this week, I'm not going to be so lucky. I need a real running back here. And with just a couple of hours until waivers run, I got nothing. So very scary there. Speaking of scary Terry back from a bye against the New Orleans Saints, who no longer have Marshawn Lattimore to scare me with this matchup. So firing up my Scary Terry. I know I've benched Scary Terry and Tyreek Hill at various points this season. Lad McConkey is somebody that I just like starting. I like putting him in the starting lineup. I don't know why. Maybe it's because as an Alabama fan, it makes me feel better for Lad McConkey to be doing things for me than watching him score against me in college. But no Lad McConkey this week. He's still injured, knee and shoulder issue. So give me Scary Terry and the boys. TJ Hawkinson. I literally traded away Trey McBride because I saw this game against Chicago and thought that is good enough for me to play in the playoffs if I make it there. And now that day is here and I'm sweating bullets, especially with Travis freaking Kelce on the other side. You know, the more I look at this, I'm very lucky that George Pickens isn't playing, but with Kenneth Walker out, Zach Charbonnet on his bench, I don't really get why this is such a wide projection. If Jamar Chase hadn't gotten 45 last week, and if he wasn't playing the Tennessee Titans, who have been very good defensively this year, I would feel better about this matchup. But this projection is way too high against a very good Tennessee Titans defense. It just is. I mean, wide receiver ones have not done well against the Titans. This is really down to Justin Jefferson against TJ Hawkinson on Monday Night Football. That is what I'm saying this matchup comes down to. And throw in a little Bijan Robinson for good measure. But Monday night is going to decide who gets to punch their ticket to go play underdog anchor champ in the semifinals. And the more I look at this, the more nervous I get. Matt Stafford kicking things off on Thursday. He was my 5th round draft pick this year. Dropped him outright when Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua were both injured. Forgot to pick him up as they came back into action. Boy, I hope I don't end up regretting that this week on Thursday Night Football. Matt Stafford had that epic comeback against the 49ers earlier this season, and that was without either Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua. 49ers moving in the wrong direction at this point in the season. Makes me think he's going to have a pretty darn good game. So I am worried. This matchup kicks off on Thursday. It wraps up on Monday. It is going to be a wire-to-wire dogfight for a shot at a semifinal berth in the 10th season of Antoine and Friends football action. And then finally, the quick 6 for week 15 of NFL action. There is no quick 6 this week. There's one. There's one bet. Can you guess who it is? Surely you can guess who it is. It's the Denver Broncos -4 against the Colts. Yes, this is my mortal lock of the season. Yes. Oh man, I know I'm about to pay for this one. I know I'm about to suffer for this one, but hear me out. 10-3 against the spread. I've been saying that throughout the show. 4-0 as home favorites against the spread this season. 2 of our 3 losses were as home dogs against the spread. This game, we're coming out of a bye. Kind of a wash because the Colts are coming out of a bye too. But the Colts are the main team that are in the hunt behind us, them and the Dolphins. So this is essentially a playoff game at home this season. Broncos have a little bit of trouble against great teams, but we beat up on bad teams. And Anthony Richardson at a 52% pass completion is the worst in the NFL. We are going to get at least an interception and a sack, if not multiple sacks on this guy. Bank on a Nick Bonito sack. Bank on a Pat Surtain pick, possibly a pick 6. Broncos -4, only bet you need this week. Count on it. See you all next week.